Welcome to the Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs podcast, a place for podcasters to learn what's actually working in the world of podcasting and how to use their podcast to generate consistent leads in their business. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm so excited you're here.
Hey, Savvies. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be chatting all about how to prep your podcast guests for recording day. Plus, I'm going to be sharing a couple of bonus tips on what to do once the interview is actually live. So let's jump into the episode. So I have 3 tips for you here. So let's just get right into them. So the first one is have them fill out a podcast guest form at the same time as they're booking their interview. So for example, I use Acuity as my scheduling tool, and they also let you do an intake form when your client is scheduling or your guest is scheduling or whatever. If you use something like Acuity or Calendly, you can do this, or you can send like a Google form or an Airtable or whatever you want to do, but just grab their headshot, bio, and social media handles right in your intake form. So you have everything that you need from them right when they book their spot on your calendar. It just makes it so much easier for both you and your guest so that they don't have to worry about getting those materials to you later on. And you can just automate this process, especially if you have something like Acuity or Calendly. So it makes it so easy. Number 2. I like to send my guests a detailed email the day before the interview outlining some key details. So I send them kind of reminders of being like in a quiet environment, having headphones and a microphone to ensure the best quality, just like kind of those housekeeping things, just to ensure that they're prepared for the interview. And then I also resend the Zoom link there as well, even though it's already included in my Acuity reminder emails that go out. I just like to have everything in one place. And then I also send questions here that I ask my guests. Not everyone crafts questions and sends them to their guests, but if you do, this is a great place to send them, and it just helps them feel more comfortable with the interview. You don't have to send questions. I don't always. It depends on, I didn't used to, I don't think, and I do now, but yeah, if you like to send questions, then this is the place to do that. If you don't have to. And then number 3, when you get on the call with them, brief them before just straight diving into the interview so they feel comfortable with the flow. Especially if it's someone you don't really know that well, it just makes it easier to give them kind of a quick run through of how the podcast interview is going to go down, just so they feel as comfortable as possible, especially people you've never talked to before. I actually used to do a pre-interview and just get to know my guests a little better, but since having a child almost 2 years ago, it's gotten harder to do those types of calls. So now we just stick to the actual interview itself, but I do vet the guests to make sure they're a good fit beforehand in other ways without having to speak with them. But it just helps get your rapport going if you haven't spoken with them before and you're not like they're new to you. So I think that's really important. And I'm sure you're also curious about what to do once that person's interview is actually live. So I did want to throw in a few bonus tips for that as well. So number 1, you're going to want to send them any and all promo materials you can so that they can help spread the word. So I like to send promo graphics, some promo text, even share all of my social media channels so that they can tag me easily without having to search for it. Just anything that you think would make promo easier on them, send it their way. Another thing I like to do is tag them on my Instagram stories. If you use Instagram, you can do this. And that's just super easy for them to just reshare it to their IG stories without having to sit there and craft out a post. It makes sure that it makes it easier for them to share, more likely for them to share. Hopefully they're sharing regardless, but this just kind of makes it a no-brainer for them to share because you already are doing the work for them. And then number 3, this is the most important one in my opinion. You want to make sure to make it a habit to regularly check in with your guests and see how you can continue to support them. A podcast interview shouldn't be a one and done thing. You should be able to support them throughout their journey and they support you, and just have a really collaborative relationship with that person. I know this is where a lot of people go because it is hard to keep up with a lot of people, but something as simple as just like watching their stories on Instagram or commenting on their posts on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you hang out and just letting them know that you aren't considering this a one and done thing, that you're still supporting them and commenting on their stuff and seeing how you can work with them in the future. I think that's really important. And like I said, something a lot of people don't do great at because just lack of time, really. And it's not that they don't want to, they just don't know how to as well. And it really doesn't need to be anything elaborate. It can literally just be as simple as like checking in, like, hey, I see you're launching this thing. How amazing. I'd love to chat with you and learn more about that. And even just ask them how they're doing. Honestly, that just means the world to people. And I always love when my guests do that to me. So I try to be proactive about it and do it with them as well. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you. How do you currently prep your guests for recording day? Do you do anything special that your guests rave about, or is it kind of standard? I'd love to hear anything that you have to say. So send me a DM over at jenny.sunnison on Instagram and let's chat about it. All right, that's it for today's episode. If you want to check out the show notes for the episode, you can go to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, and leave a review. You can find us at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com and on Facebook at Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs and Instagram at Savvy Podcasting. Make sure to join our free Facebook community for podcasters by going to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/community and join in on the exclusive community just for Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs listeners. I'll see you there.